The most mysterious angels in the Bible is the Ophanim. In the Old Testament, angels are referenced 108 times. The book of Genesis recounts instances of angels intervening in the lives of Abraham and Jacob. In the book of Exodus, Moses also encountered angels during the wilderness wandering. In total, the word angels or angel appears in the book of the Law and Moses' writings 32 times. The angels of God are introduced to us in the scriptures as the host of heaven. Angels are real beings. They are not mythical figures or opinions. They are spiritual personalities that have a physical impact. Just like the demonic world, the angelic world is also hidden. We might not be able to touch them, yet angels touch people. You cannot handle them, yet they can destroy kings. This brings us to the most mysterious angels in the Bible, the Ophanim. What are the Ophanim? The term Ophanim in ancient Hebrew refers to wheels. The singular is Ophan. Of course, wheels are cited several times in the Old Testament, and the Ophanim can refer to normal wheels on a cart or a chariot, but of particular interest are the wheels on the throne of God, mentioned in Ezekiel's vision. The ministry of Ezekiel was absolutely necessary for the exiles. For those who believed and gave heed to his words, there was life, but for the others, certain judgment. Ezekiel's ministry showed that God was still communicating with them, even during times of harsh judgment. Even though they would be punished, they were not abandoned. Jeremiah preached God's message in Jerusalem, while another voice preached it to the exiles in Babylon, so they would be informed about God's plans. Both voices were equally strong. Ezekiel has been in exile when God appeared to him. God used this encounter to start Ezekiel's ministry as a prophet by showing him an astounding vision. It is hard to define the Ophanim depicted in Ezekiel's vision without considering the entirety of the revelation. God chooses to open the heavens in front of Ezekiel's temporal eyes. The description of Ezekiel's inaugural vision is one of the most difficult passages to translate in the whole Old Testament. He tried to put into words something that couldn't be explained clearly. He used similes to describe it, comparing it to other things in order to give an idea of what it was like. We read the phrase, something like gleaming metal in the midst of the fire. Ezekiel notices a foreboding dark cloud of lightning and fire approaching from the north. Within the cloud, there are 4 lighted beings that shine brightly. Although the beings have the appearance of humans, they are not human in any way. Each possesses 4 different faces, 1 human face, 1 lion face, 1 ox face, and 1 eagle face. What Ezekiel saw was real, but he had to describe it with familiar terms. Before witnessing the Ophanim, Ezekiel saw creatures that later identified these creatures as cherubim. The cherubim are a group of celestial beings created by God. They are the first of the angelic hierarchy to appear in the Bible, immediately following Adam and Eve's fall from grace. We don't know Adam's reaction to witnessing those glorious cherubim for the first time in human history. Perhaps awe, fright, and wonder will come to mind. In Exodus 25, Moses was given specific and detailed instructions on how to make several articles of furniture that would be used in the tabernacle. The Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat where God promised to meet and commune with Moses were the first to be detailed. What did God want to go over or on top of the mercy seat? He chose representations of the cherubim in gold. What an awesome sight that must have been. The cherubim, associated with the very presence of God. And here Ezekiel sees the cherubim in the presence of God. They constantly glorify God. Though artists have painted cherubim, the plural of cherub, as chubby little angelic-looking creatures, the Bible describes them as attending the throne of God and executing His will, Ezekiel 1 verses 8 to 10. Ezekiel noticed that each living creature had 4 faces, 1 human, possibly representing intelligence, 1 lion, representing strength, 1 ox, representing servitude, and 1 eagle, representing loftiness. They had wings and the willingness to go wherever the Spirit went. The Lord wanted Ezekiel to understand that He is everywhere. Ezekiel may have been in a land of captivity, but he was not alone. God was with him. As believers in God, we can find comfort in the fact that He is always with us no matter where we are or what challenges we are facing. The idea that God is present everywhere gives us peace of mind knowing that He is always with us. After seeing the cherubim, Ezekiel saw the wheels, like the chariot wheels. The best object for imagining what Ezekiel saw is a gyroscope. Ezekiel was describing something that could move in any direction without needing to turn. Keep in mind that Ezekiel was describing the indescribable. Ezekiel continued to describe the constant interaction between the wheels and the cherubim. Wherever the cherubim went, the wheels went. He reported that the Spirit of God manifested in all this was happening. Ezekiel was also seeing God's omniscience. The multiple eyes he saw represented God's complete awareness. He sees and knows everything. This great book begins with a vision. Ezekiel receives a revelation from God of 4 angelic figures. In this vision, God calls the prophet to be his spokesman and watchman to the Hebrew exiles. This vision is first of 4 in the book. Ezekiel describes this first vision in vivid detail. Like all effective leaders, he spoke as clearly as possible. A pastor once said, "If it's fuzzy in the pulpit, it's foggy in the pew." Ezekiel provided vision by way of analogies, then applied those visions. He communicated a picture, then shared his point. Divine visions always help a leader and the people move in the right direction. A divine vision also seems to include these components. The spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels so that the creatures moved in whatever direction the wheels moved. It was indeed an awesome sight. The huge wheels, the living creatures, the unfolding fire, and the eyes in the rims of the wheels. What an arresting picture of the providence of God, always at work, intricately designing, never wrong and never late. What Ezekiel saw or described in this passage is difficult to visualize in its entirety. It's presumably an image of a magnificent chariot with 4 wheels that's bringing the throne of God. The scene gives the impression of continuous motion and activity, not only on the part of the living beings themselves, but also on the part of God's throne. The sense seems to be that the wheels and their workings could move in any direction, but there was no sense of chaos or disorder in their movements. A popular Bible commenter stated about this, like a ball bearing, they could move in any direction without any steering mechanism. Finally, Ezekiel saw the chamber in heaven and tried to describe the sights and the sounds of the creature. Then he noticed a throne occupied by someone with the appearance of a man. Ezekiel observed that the entity seated on the throne resembled a human but was more akin to flames than physical matter. The description full of eyes was how John described the cherubim themselves, Revelation 4 verse 6, New American Standard Bible. And before the throne, there was something like a sea of glass, like crystal, and in the center and around the throne, for living creatures full of eyes in front and behind. The sense is of excellent knowledge and intelligence. The 4 wheels and their workings moved in step with the 4 cherubim as they rotated. They were linked together in such a way that Ezekiel was able to write, "The spirits of the living creatures were in the wheels." Ophanim were also mentioned similarly in Ezekiel 10. Ezekiel was meant to understand that God's chariot or chariot throne was on the move. The image seems bizarre to the modern reader, but one must remember that this is a visionary experience. The surrealistic features may overwhelm realism. In the passages, the throne of God is set on wheels, Ophanim, and then pushed by 4 angels. There are wheels inside of wheels at cross angles with the effect that the throne can move in any direction without having to turn. The Ophanim has been a point of fascination for many, and later, Jewish apocalyptic writers gave them a life of their own. The wheels were eventually recognized as a separate type of angel known as the Ophanim. Why do some refer to the Ophanim as angels? There's not a single mention of the Ophanim in the scriptures being angelic creatures, but apocryphal Jewish writers branded them as a class of angel and list them in their hierarchy of angels, along with the seraphim and cherubim. Because of the Ophanim's unique life-likeness, their supernatural power, and their close proximity to God's throne, not to mention the multitude of eyes. Whether or not the Ophanim are actually angelic beings or merely a divinely powered mechanism of multidimensional transport doesn't matter. What does matter is the Ophanim's function in displaying God's glory to Ezekiel and every other believer who would one day read his account and gain a renewed vision of God's kingship. There are several major themes in the book of Ezekiel. The idea as expressed in Ezekiel 1 with the vision of God pictured as ruling over all creation is repeated several times throughout the book. However, this vision is the first of 4 in the book. Ezekiel saw other visions. To watch the vision of the Valley of Dry Bones, click here.